Hi, I'm Matt Jackson and welcome to Next Level Carpentry. In this tutorial, I'm going to show how I use a gang cutting method to make a batch of blocks of identical length out of these long strips of poplar. I'll show how I use masking tape and a marking knife to make the process quick, simple, and accurate. Check it out. To start off with, I'll just mention that there's all sorts of methods of setting up a fixture for a table saw or a miter box. There's flip-up stops and everything for cutting blocks of equal length, and those are all good methods in certain applications. In this case, I just need to make a stack of these blocks equal in length, and by minimizing the number of marks and cuts, I can make the process quicker and more accurate. But I'm not saying this is the only way to get the job done, but I use it whenever I can because it's so quick. As always, the key to accuracy is consistency. So these blocks have been milled flat, straight, and true, identical in width and thickness, so that the resulting blocks will be identical to each other. Accuracy in equipment is equally essential. So make sure that the miter saw blade is perfectly perpendicular to the table, both vertically and horizontally. And also that there's no play in the raise and lower mechanism of the saw. If you're using a sliding miter box, all the tolerances need to be tight so that the blade is cutting consistently and accurately in the same spot. And I think it goes without saying that the blade needs to be clean and sharp. I particularly like this older miter box. It's not a compound or sliding miter box because it has a nice tall fence. Some of the compound miter boxes where the fences are lower probably need an auxiliary fence put in there during the cutting process. Like I already mentioned, one of the important things about making this process accurate and quick is to minimize the number of marks that need to be made. So I take my blanks and roughly line up the ends. And on one of the blanks, I'll mark off the 8 7/8 inch length that I need. Notice I'm not marking from the end of the blanks. I'll come in about a half or 3/4 of an inch. And I'm marking from 10 to 18 7/8 just because it's easier to be accurate than worrying about the end of the tape measure. Once I've got the marks made and the blanks lined up, I'll use masking tape to bind the bundle together. And 6 rolls for $1 masking tape doesn't work very well. I use this Scotch brand tape. It's got plenty of strength and a bit of stretch that helps hold things together nicely. This is the metric version of the 1-inch tape. I'll start the tape on the top of the bundle and with a little bit of pulling pressure stretch it around. Stretching as much as I can without tearing the tape. If the tape tears like that and you have to redo it, make sure the seam laps are on the top or the bottom of the bundle. I'll wrap twice on this bundle. This time I started on the bottom. Which is fine. I just don't want an inconsistent number of layers of tape where this bundle is going to be up against the miter saw fence. The 2 wraps of tape are in between my marks, and I put another wrap beyond the marks. And in this case, I'm just going to put another one at the far end of the bundle. You can see that there's some clamping pressure gained by pulling on the tape. The next step in the process is to cut this bundle precisely at this mark, making sure everything's flat on the table, tight up against the fence. The end of the blocks are perfectly flush and square to each other on both sides of the cut. The second cut is made precisely at the 8 7/8 inch mark. I always double check the length at this point because a mistake here means that I end up with a batch of very, very accurate mistakes. And it's no fun making mistakes, even very accurate ones. That second cut gives me 6 pattern blocks. Next, I'll use a sharp marking knife to transfer the length of the pattern blocks to the stack of strips. The tail on that mark reminds me which side of the line the saw curve goes. I'll add a strip of tape on each side of the mark. And then cut on the correct side of the scribe line. I'm dialing the camera way in because I want to show how I can sneak up on the mark made with the marking knife. And if you watch closely, you can see the wood crumble away when I'm getting close, and then there's no more crumbling wood when I'm exactly on the mark. I'm not sure how well that'll show up in the video, but when you're actually doing this process, you'll see exactly what I mean. That second cut gives another stack of blocks that are identical in length to the first. If I end up with a step in the end of the bundle of blanks, I make sure to trim that off flush before marking the next batch of blocks. I like to make that cut in the bundle with the blade making a full curve. If I try to take a partial cut and shave the face of the blocks off and the blade isn't brand new and perfectly clean, it can tend to deflect, which I don't want to have, and this blade's a little bit tired. Another important thing in keeping this process accurate is to not make a cut when there's only one piece of tape between the fence and the blocks. On longer blocks it's not that important, but on a short block, that extra thickness of the tape can tilt the bundle of blocks. It's just a little bit and leads to inconsistencies that I'm not comfortable with. So I'll add another piece of tape at this point to account for that. And I know I'm leaving myself wide open to grief from YouTube trolls, but that's just the reality in the digital age. I've set up an LED flashlight so that the scribe mark from the marking knife is very visible, and I'll purposely sneak up on the line so that you can see the change as the cut approaches the precise mark point. It helps to be able to slide the blocks up against a fence because that'll align the sides, and I can use my fingers to feel when the other end of the blanks are perfectly flush. I moved that LED light to get a better shot of using the marking knife. The blade has a bevel so that I'm able to place the bevel flat up against the bundle of wood and make an accurate mark. And compared to a pencil, even a fine mechanical pencil, I find that the mark left by the knife is much more easy to follow when I'm aiming for this level of accuracy. Well, there you have it. I think that covers the high points of the gang cutting process I use for making batches of blocks of identical length in a pretty short order. And this is not the time to pull out your tape measure to double check the measurement, because instead of having a pile of precision blocks, you've got some of the finest kindling available. Another handy feature of using this method is that it keeps all these blocks together and organized until they're ready to be added into the project. If my shop was bigger, had more equipment, it would probably have a dedicated saw station with a stop block that I could set up in an instant and get this done quickly. But even at that, this method is tough to beat. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content here, I hope you'll subscribe and pass the word around. I don't do Facebook or Twitter at this point, so any sharing that viewers care to do would be appreciated. If you've got a little more time or you're binge watching, here's a couple more videos that you can check out before you surf off to another site. Thanks for watching.